Yeah, and again, I think you mentioned Van Riemsdyk, and it's an interesting part. It's sort of the part of the top six that we're all kind of questioning of like, is this gonna work? And we mentioned Poitras moving into the top six, Coyle moving into the third line. That might not necessarily be the case. Again, if Coyle's playing well and Van Riemsdyk isn't, you might bring Poitras up and play him at center and move Coyle to the wing, maybe on Poitras' line, move Van Riemsdyk down, and I would assume you would move DeBrusk next to Zacha and Pastrnak. You could also do Zacha, Poitras, Pastrnak if you really wanted to shake things up. I still think Zacha, you kind of want to have him down the middle long term, hoping that he sort of works out.
Bruins Beat is brought to you by Fanduel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network.
And welcome into Bruins Beat on CLNS Media. It's October 10th. That's Conor Ryan. I'm Evan Marinofsky. Conor, what is up?
Evan, I'm doing great. I'm ready for hockey to be back.
That's awesome to hear. Great. Not just well, but great. Thank God, Conor, we're not a Patriots podcast. It'll be a tough day today. Oof. Not a lot of optimism around those parts.
It's not great, Evan. It's not great.
No, it's not. And you were there. Actually, we were both in Foxborough on Sunday. You were at the game, covering it. And I was at actually at an event I think people would rather see than the Patriots right now, which was a hockey tournament. Yes. Foxborough Sports Center. So that was a little more watchable than the Patriots game.
Evan, I think I'd rather go to a competitive juggling tournament than watch the Patriots. So it's not a high bar you have to clear right now. So
no, it's not. It's not. It is not at all.
Not to besmirch the jugglers who watch our podcast. I'm sorry, that was out of line for me.
Yeah, we'll draft up your apology after we finish recording this. Okay. You can give a good apology to the jugglers. But yes, it is the regular season starts this week. Tuesday night is the big night. Opening the first 3 games of the season. Bruins start, obviously, Wednesday against Chicago. Old friends Taylor Hall and Nick Foligno. But we do this every year. And again, we're always presented by our good friends at FanDuel, which we'll get to later. There's also some interesting FanDuel odds that I think pertain to this. But we always do predictions. Bruins predictions. And sometimes we're right. Sometimes we're wrong. Actually, I don't remember when we've ever been wrong. It's very, very rare that ever happens. That we're wrong. I mean, kidding me? And to our credit, by the way, last year, you and I were pretty high on the Bruins when not a lot of other places were, right? Like, people were pretty down on them last year.
Yeah, we could have had the biggest gloating stretch if they actually went far in the playoffs. Did not work, but yes, we called it very early on. That team was sneakily going to be a wagon. So, who knows, maybe we'll make some right calls this time as well, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see about that. And again, Media Day was Monday, and there was some interesting tidbits from that we'll probably get to as the week goes on. But predictions, by the way, we say week goes on. Things are changing around here a little bit in terms of our podcasts we should tell you about. Bruins Beat is now going to be twice a week, and Poke the Bear is going to be twice a week. 2 times a week times 2. That's 4 episodes per week. It will not be me and you on every episode. You will get new guests, different guests. Ty Anderson is going to be in the fold doing some stuff. I think I can say that. As well as some other Bruins guests. So we're going to be doing a lot of different stuff. You'll still get us. Don't worry. Don't fret. You'll still have us. So, but there will be some different people coming in the mix, more episodes, which is fun. I like it. We're never going to run out of things to talk about, hopefully. And we'll be doing some mailbags throughout and things like that. But let's dive into some predictions. I'll go first. I'll make my first one. And we can kind of, if we agree with that or disagree with it. And I'm going to start where the iron is hottest. That's Matt Poitras. Poitras. I almost said Poitras. Matt Poitras. This is a change from where I was like 2 weeks ago. My prediction is not only does he stay in Boston past 9 games, but he replaces Charlie Coyle in the top 6 and finishes with 45 points. I am very high on this. Where are you on that?
Yeah, Evan, I hate to do this, but I've also done like a 180. I mean, I think our early takes on Poitras were very much rooted in like, all right, this kid's 19. He's only played 2 full seasons of junior hockey. Give him some space, give him some time, and he's on his way up here. He's kind of taken that narrative and just shredded it. And I mean, every single game, it'd be one thing if he had 1 or 2 fantastic showings and really taken a step forward here and there. Every single time the Bruins handed him a challenge, whether it's, all right, you play with Pastrnak, you play with Marchand, you do a back-to-back, you play 3 games in 4 days, you play on a third line with Geeky and Frederick. Every single time he delivered, right? I mean, it's very impressive to see him just, whatever hurdle he's had, he's dealt with it. And, yeah, I think early on in the preseason, we were like, all right, this guy's earned that 9-game spot. I'm with you that I think he's sticking around the whole year. I just look at the way he produces, the way that – even talked to a few guys during media day today, and they're well aware of the narrative of like his size, whether he can get whether he can withstand the punishment of the NHL. You talk to some guys, they're like, what happens every time he gets back up? Like, it's not like this guy's getting ragdolled around there. Like, he's taking his lumps, gets back up. He's a smart player, and then he puts himself in spots where he's not going to get absolutely obliterated against the glass or anything like that. So if he can keep up like the playmaking poise and continue to take steps forward in that regard, I think there's a lot to like about him. I think the biggest hurdle is, well, I guess the biggest one is, making the proper impression in these 9 games. But if you look at the best case scenario for this team, it's kind of what you mapped out in the fact that if he can step into a top 6 role, which I don't think is going to be handed to him out of the gate, I imagine they see what he can do on the third line in these 9 games. But if you get into a spot where he's all of a sudden on the second line with Marchand and DeBrusk, and not saying that he's driving the play there, but he can make the most out of that high-end talent, and it pushes a guy like Cole to the third line. All of a sudden you see that forward core, and you're like, all right, I see where things work out. It's almost like when Bergeron and Krejci were there, the domino effect of guys slotting into their proper roles. You can see it map out that way. So I think maybe we'll see if he can actually get up to that top 6 at some point, whether it's during these 9 games or beyond that. But yeah, I've switched my take around. Every time that Poitras seems to be handed a tough challenge, he's answered it. So he's been really impressive. Would not be surprised if he's here long term.
We have seen the light, Connor, when it comes to Poitras. We have seen the light, and it is clear.
We've officially joined We've joined the pothead contingent, I believe is what it is. So.
The potheads. I love that. The potheads. It's true. We're smoking that pot, I guess, is what the kids say. So.
That's what the kids say. You sound like Red Foreman from.
So we're smoking the pot of Poitras right now. Crazy 180 by us, but I will say I think he's got the 3 skills that equal success, not just in the NHL but with the Bruins. Right? He's got the skill, he's got the brains, and he's really freaking tough. And I think when you put those 3 things together, those are good ingredients. And I think you look at other prospects in the system over the years, they've had some of those things, but maybe not all of those things. And I think Poitras, the early returns are he has those. And so I think Poitras, again, it's sort of bold considering he's 19 and he has yet to play an NHL regular season game. But again, that training camp was just too damn good to think otherwise on that. So yeah, I think he stays past 9 games. And again, I don't think he'll replace Coyle in the top 6 because Coyle's bad or anything. I just think it comes down to where's the fit, where's the matchup, going to be the best. So I think Poitras moves his way up at some point in the first month or so. Do you have a prediction you want to give out? What's one of your big bolder predictions? Because I know you have a story coming with all your predictions, so I don't want to spoil all of yours. I don't, but I don't.
I think we'll probably at the very end of this we'll save like the season wide prediction, right? So I'll wait on that. So I won't jump ahead of it. It won't be like a Tarantino script where I go to the end and or anything like that.
They're lifting the Stanley Cup in the opening scene,
My bold prediction, I would say, is this Bruins team is going to lead the NHL in penalty minutes because I think you look at the way they're built. I think you look at the strengths of this team. We've talked about this, right? It's going to be rooted in defense and goaltending. That's the obvious one. You're not going to have that same firepower. I look at the way they've kind of constructed this roster, the amount of, physicality, the amount of just like bigger guys out there. Like I wouldn't call like Morgan Geeky a bruiser by any chance, right? But like the amount of guys they've added, Lucic, Van Riemsdyk, Geeky, who's 6'3", Beecher, who's 6'3", 216, all these guys. I'm very curious to see how they kind of change their approach up front, where I think you've got that high-end skill on the wings, right? You can lean on some of those guys to drive play, but I think you look at the rest of the forward core, it would not surprise me if they just looked at like what Florida did, and it's like, we're going to be cycle heavy, we're going to bug the shit out of everyone, like we're going to really muck it up, get to the net front, get to grade A ice, and really maybe be less of a rush-heavy team beyond like, I think you can do that when you've got a line anchored by a Pastrnak, but I think you look at the rest of the lineup, got a lot of guys that can win board battles, can do some damage on the forecheck, and really kind of muck things up. And I think that's not just the Lucic effect. I think you look at guys like Lauko, Beecher, Frederick, even Van Riemsdyk, all these players, Marchand, who again, 2-3 games into the preseason was playing like it was a game 7, right? In terms of just agitating guys. So not to say the Bruins are doing a heel turn. I'm sure there's a lot of other teams that already think they've been heels for years and years, right? But I'm very curious to see how they kind of approach that forward group, whether it just becomes more of a heavier physical team. Not to say that this is a grit thing or anything like that, but I don't know, man. Look at Florida. Look at what they did last year. Like, would not be surprised. It's a copycat league. Would not be surprised if the Bruins end up just being a really punishing team, especially up front.
Yeah, again, if you're forechecking hard and doing those things like that, especially physically, you're going to accumulate penalty minutes as time goes along. And also, as you were saying that, it's an interesting take, and I agree with it. It also wouldn't shock me if at some point this year you see a good old-fashioned, all 5 guys in a fight or all 5 guys involved in some sort of brawl. Because as you said, I think the Brewers are going to be tough to play against in that sense. Doesn't mean they're going to win every single game, but I think it's going to be kind of a different look, especially with the physicality end of it. And again, with guys like Lucic on the roster, Lauko potentially in a more full-time role, Frederick, Beecher's speed and physicality. I think, Van Riemsdyk is a sort of a veteran guy. You mentioned Geeky. If Brown's in the lineup, I know Brown just got waived. By the way, Greer, before we came on to record this, Greer got claimed by Calgary on waivers. So long to AJ Greer, who really kind of got, I feel like once Lucic came in, that was sort of Greer's role, if that was ever going to be anybody's. Yeah. So it just didn't really feel like a fit. And I think Lucic obviously has he's Milan Lucic, so what are you going to do? So yeah, I agree with you. That's an interesting one, though. Lead the league in penalty minutes. I like that. That's outside the box, which is what we try to go for. My second prediction, it's not a super bold prediction, but just sort of in general. I think they're going to start off hot. Now, you look at the schedule. It's not crazy. Chicago and Nashville to start at home. Then you go out west. You got Anaheim. LA Kings are good, but you got the Sharks. Then you have the Blackhawks again after. So it would not shock me if they start very good and people go, oh, wait a minute, and I mean, the odds, like FanDuel right now, our good friends over at FanDuel, by the way, have the Bruins at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8th best Stanley Cup odds, which is somewhat high, I feel like. I know they're the Bruins and everything, but still, I think they're going to start off hot. You're going to get a real good look. That's why I also think Poitras stays past the 9 games. I think that, it's not the toughest oppositions to start. So again, I think he's going to look really good. So yeah, I think this Bruins team starts off pretty damn good. What do you think? I mean, are they going to be like last year?
Yeah, I don't think they're going to go, 14-2 or anything
that was
like
crazy.
that. But no, you do look at just the way they start off. And yeah, it does open for a chance to start off hot. The only challenge I would say is the fact that I think so much is still in flux with the lines, right? You don't have the luxury of Marchand, Bergeron, DeBrus, Pastrnak with Krejci, those things where it's like, all right, this is going to be set in stone. You look at this group, right? Like, is James Van Riemsdyk going to be a top 6 fixture the entire season? Like, you got the Poitras thing, the fourth line with younger players like Lauko and Beecher. Are there changes on the third D pairing, like between Forbort and Shattenkirk, who both had kind of so-so preseasons? We haven't even talked about Lohrei, which again, I assume maybe we shouldn't talk too much about it because we're still waiting for the actual roster decision there of whether or not he's making the team. I think conventional thinking is that he opens the year in Providence. We'll see if that ages terribly in the next 20 minutes or so, but But I think you look at, I could see there being a lot of tinkering really early on, just because there's just so much overhaul there. It's not just at 5-on-5 even strength. You look at power play with Zacha. Like, even though there's been 6 preseason games, you haven't seen the same guys out there, right? You haven't seen the same consistent PK grouping or power play grouping. So I imagine there's going to be a lot of maybe give and take, and a lot of probably pretty close contests early on as they just try to figure out where this pretty reworked lineup kind of best fits out there.
Yeah, and again, I think you mentioned Van Riemsdyk, and it's an interesting part. It's sort of the part of the top 6 that we're all kind of questioning of, like, is this going to work? And, we mentioned Poitras moving into the top 6, Coyle moving into the third line. That might not necessarily be the case. Again, if Coyle's playing well and Van Riemsdyk isn't, you might bring Poitras up and play him at center and move Coyle to the wing, maybe on Poitras' line, move Van Riemsdyk down, and I would assume you would move DeBrusk next to Zacha and Pastrnak. You could also do Zacha, Poitras, Pastrnak if you really wanted to shake things up. I still think Zacha, you kind of want to have him down the middle long term, hoping that he sort of works out. So I agree. There's going to be a lot of stuff with that. But we mentioned Fanduel, Conor, and I want to take a little break in the action to tell our listeners about our good friends over at Fanduel. All right. Quick second here to tell you about our good friends over at Fanduel. Snap into action this NFL season with Fanduel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. Again, that's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining Fanduel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/Boston and kick off the NFL season. Again, FanDuel.com/Boston. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. All right, so that is we're back. We're back doing some predictions. FanDuel, always a riveting. It was for the video part of the commercial. The audio, I think, is me talking, but Gary Tanguay did a great job with the video part of the commercial. It was just, it's intense. It's intense.
Yes.
All right, so moving right along, what's another prediction of yours you have?
I'm going to have, I think you look at the question marks up front about especially the center position. You look at Poitras, obviously. I'm pretty high actually on Zacha and what he can do in that role. I have Zacha down for 65 points this year. I think you look at, this is a guy who last year surpassed his career high in scoring by 21 points. And a lot of that was a byproduct of 5-on-5 play. The only Bruin who had more 5-on-5 points than him last year was Pastrnak, who I think is a given, right? I think there's a reason why he's up there, but this is a guy that had more 5-on-5 points than Bergeron, DeBrusk, Krejci, Marchand, even guys who played every game, Coyle, Lindholm. He's been productive in those roles. So I think you look at just the natural production that Zacha has shown last year, the chemistry he has with David Pastrnak, which again, I think you staple anyone to a 60-goal scorer and Pastrnak, the numbers are going to jump up just a little bit. But I think you look at the power play as well, right? With him in that spot, again, I think you need to sort out how that group works, having a left shot guy in there and how that changes things up. But again, it's a simple byproduct of if you have someone earning regular reps on the power play with guys like Marchand and Pastrnak and McAvoy, Van Riemsdyk, whoever it is, right? You're going to do some damage out there, even if that's secondary assists or what have you. Like Zacha has shown he has really good poise in the offensive zone, and would not surprise me at all if he's a guy that takes another big step forward and crosses that 60-point threshold. Again, it's not to say that I think he's got 5 more years to reach, but I think he's shown that he can hold his own elite level talent and a whole year with those guys. It's almost like how I kind of compare it to like Vegas with like Chandler Stevenson, who is kind of this solid bottom 6 guy before getting to Vegas, goes in that spot in Vegas, is elevated by a lot of really talented guys on the wing. And I think having that confidence, having that momentum of being with those guys also brings out the best in that player. Like Chandler Stevenson could get a $7 million contract next year off of, him developing into a really strong player. I think the Bruins are hoping for something similar with a guy like Zacha.
Sort of the line mates rubbing off on him and making him better. I disagree. 65, I have him at 70. I have Zacha at 70 points. I think he hits
You're
it.
a mad lad. Evan.
Yeah, mad lad. I'm crazy. After watching the David Beckham documentaries, I'm just as you said, a mad lad. One of the mates. By the way, great documentary. Have you watched it fully?
I have not. No.
Oh, it's good. I'm on the final episode. It's up there with like The Last Dance, I think. Zacha, though, I agree with you. I do. And I think this team needs him to be the number one offensive center. We've kind of mentioned Coyle and what his role is going to be. Poitras is sort of a to be determined. I think we have a somewhat of an idea of what you can hope to get out of him as someone who can develop into a sort of a top 6 stalwart center for the future. But Zacha is what you hope. I think Zacha is sort of you're banking on that. And again, stapled to Pastrnak for a full season. Again, we'll see about Van Riemsdyk. Can he keep up? I think that's the biggest thing. Can he find a role on that line? Again, they're going to play fast. Can he match that? Are we going to have to go down? Is DeBrusque going to have to go down to that line? Are they going to have to get crafty with it? But I think overall, Zacha hits 70. So again, 65, 70. And by the way, we mentioned this a lot throughout the offseason. That's really good. They need that. They really need that. And I don't think it's crazy. I don't think that's a super bold prediction, given the 5-on-5 production last year, given being next to Pastrnak. So I wouldn't put that as like bold. I think that's reasonable. While we're on this, I'll say Pastrnak hits 55 goals. I know he hit 60 last year. I think 55. I think that's a lot. That's a ton. Because FanDuel, by the way, has his over-under at 47.5. So I would take the over there. I still think he scores a lot of goals this year, whether it be the power play, whether it be with Zacha. So I think he's at 55 goals. So I think he sees a little bit of a drop-off, but, I mean, he hit 60 last year. So, I don't think that's much of a drop-off. What do you think?
I'm going to go with 48. I think whether it's him trying to get more guys involved, how having a guy like Zacha in that spot on the power play and how that changes maybe how much he's maybe holding onto the puck a bit more, and maybe it opens up. I think one guy on the power play that probably needs to shoot a little bit more is Marchand. I think he's inclined to do a lot of passing, looking for seams, but getting him more involved offensively. I think Pasternak's going to have a great year again, regardless of who he's out there with, but I could see maybe taking a little bit more of a playmaking approach, which playmaking approach still means the end of 48 goals. I think he'll take it, but I'll go below that. I think in terms of at least what you're predicting.
Yeah, I think it's, again, I think we both have him producing a lot, which I think is the most important thing. I think we both agree he's going to have the most goals on the Bruins this year. I don't think anyone's topping 48 goals or 55 goals. Be cool if someone did. Be quite the storyline. Poitras comes in, scores 60 goals immediately. Book it. You got the clip right here. Any other guys you want to do point totals on or goals that you kind of have in mind? My only other one I had was I think McAvoy hit 60 points. I think McAvoy's going to have his best year so far as a pro, fully healthy. Did not come in last year fully healthy. Highly effective. Kind of going to, again, he's the main guy back there. Hampus Lindholm, really great last year. I think he's still going to be good this year. But I got McAvoy at 60 points, which is a career high for him. Do you have anybody that you're kind of on with that?
Yeah, I'll go with DeBrusque having 30 goals. I think he's been due for years now. I mean, he would have had 36, 37 goals last year if it wasn't for injury. So I think he's the guy that makes plenty of sense as being someone that if he's in a steady role up there, and whether that's even with Coyle or if Poitras hits and steps into that spot, I think DeBrusque is a guy that if he can at least build off of what we saw last year from him of regularly impacting the game. Again, not like he's, in terms of like the strengths of his game, not like this is anything different from what we saw during maybe spurts as a younger player. But if he's going north-south, driving to the net, hanging around the blue paint, making things happen down there, the goals are going to come. Like even if this team's offensive firepower was diminished a little bit, if DeBrusque plays to his strengths, there's enough talent, especially in those spots in the top 6 on the power play, that he's going to be able to do quite a bit of damage out there.
Do you have a prediction based on whether or not he resigns? Am I jumping the gun here, or do you not have one yet?
I don't have anything set in stone, but I imagine they hash something out. I don't think it's something that they're going to wait until the offseason to do it, because I feel like as soon as he starts scoring goals, price is going to go up. I don't know if you saw Gary Bettman said that.
Prices are going up, and away.
Yes. Like, I don't know if – I'm sure you saw that Gary Bettman mentioned that the cap projected to go up between 4 and 4.5. It's really good news for the Bruins, especially if they all of a sudden have, like, a Zacha, Poitras kind of tandem right there, but you also want to have that extra space to further bolster a pretty set foundation you have here, and shoring up DeBrusk when maybe he's signing for 6-7 years at 6.5, 7 is better than all of a sudden you get to a spot where it's 8.5, right? So that's something definitely worth monitoring and see kind of where it goes from here.
I think they do. I think they do end up getting something done. As I've said all along, I guess if they, let's say the first 2 months go poorly, maybe then you reconsider if a deal's not done yet, because maybe that's a piece of, you can trade him and get something for him. But I still think they're going to hash something out. 30-goal wingers are, when you got one, try to keep them. And I think they certainly will. By the way, speaking of the cap and speaking of contracts and numbers, how good does Charlie McAvoy's $9.5 million look today? I don't think 11 million is even a super overpay for Dahlin. I think he's really good and he's kind of only getting better, but I still think McAvoy's 9.5. People were like, 9.5. It's like, no, that's a really good contract that's only going to look cheaper with time. And it helped him finance his wedding at the Boston Public Library. So, I mean, that's all that matters, really. So good for him. So I don't have any more points or goals predictions for guys that, are notable or, big. I'll go in net, though, and it's not points or it's not a stat, but I think Ullmark's regression is going to be steeper than we sort of anticipated. We anticipated that this year he's not going to be he's not going to put up the same exact Vezina numbers he did last year. I think it's okay that happens. But I think it's going to be a teeny bit worse than what we expect. And I think Jeremy Swayman's going to be really good this year, and I think this is the year that Swayman sort of passes Ullmark and maybe gets a little more games. I said that last year. I said Swayman was going to be, I thought Swayman was going to be the better of the two last year. I was obviously very wrong. Not very wrong. Swayman was still very good, but Ullmark was outstanding. But I have Swayman this year. I'm going to stick with this. I'm going to predict it again. I think Swayman is going to elevate past him. I think it's time. I'm curious, all the rumblings in the offseason about trades and wanting to trade Ullmark at the draft. I'm curious if that affected him in any way. I mean, he made some interesting comments throughout the offseason. So I'm curious. I'm curious how he will respond to that. And, do they make a move at some point? I would think no, because that's going to be the identity of this team is in net. But, my prediction is I think Swayman's going to be the better of the two this year. Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, I think it's something where Swayman is due to take a step forward. I think it's only natural to expect Ullmark to regress a little bit. I still don't think it's going to be something where it's a seismic regression or anything like that. I think it's something where you could see maybe Swayman ends up getting 55% of the reps or what have you. I don't think it's like Ullmark drops to a 9-10 save percentage or anything like that. He's hovered around that level before. And it's kind of the same thing as last year with Swayman, where he kind of started a little bit slow, but by the end of it, right? What was he? I think he was third in high danger save percentage among goalies. This is a guy that I think at his age has a lot more room to grow. And also, let's not forget, guy who's got a 1-year deal, it was kind of given a prove it contract. And I'm sure he's very motivated to kind of prove that they probably should have, got a longer deal there, or he's setting himself up for a pretty extensive payout. So I think that is something that's worth monitoring. But the Bruins are in a good spot, right? This is something we mentioned before about the chances of making a move for a goaltender or moving one of those guys off. You have the luxury that if there is any regression, you got a pretty damn good goalie to step into those roles as well. So it all kind of works out in that regard.
That's why I don't think there should be any rush to trade Ullmark. Because I think, again, it's the backbone of your team, goaltending and defense. So to me, and I agree with you, I don't think Ullmark's regression is going to be 905 save percentage or anything like that. But I do think there will be a regression, and it'll be a little more than we sort of expected or anticipated. Again, just because of rumblings throughout the offseason and things like that. Do you have any other predictions you want to get before we hit the season stuff?
Yeah, I'll do a quick one. I don't think the Bruins are making any moves at the deadline. I think you look at their ability to embrace the youth movement, the situation where they don't have a lot of cap space, and I think they're looking towards next year. I think they're not viewing it as a bridge year, but you still look at this team. If you can, we mentioned before, it all comes down to clarity, right? If you all of a sudden know that Poitras has top six potential, if you know that Zacha can hold his own if he's with Pasternak, I can't see them, all of a sudden going out there and once again depleting some of their assets or moving a guy like Lori or Poitras or what have you. When I think they're in a spot where I think it's all about building a sustainable contending team for the future in the post-Bergeron era. Can't see them making a move. I don't know if you also just saw Mark Scheifele just signed a 7-year extension with the Jets, so we can end that one.
There that goes. Done.
So I can't. I'm not expecting any like fireworks or Elias Lindholm or anything like that. I'm gonna think it's a very quiet trade deadline for the Bruins, unless they stink and they're moving a lot of guys.
Well, that's the thing. If they do stink, then there will be people and contracts to move. That's for sure. Again, the Scheifele thing hits at this. Not many guys hit free agency anymore who are high-end players. You're not building your franchise through free agency. So I will push back a little bit, though, on the deadline thing. I don't think they make any seismic moves, but it wouldn't shock me if someone like Matt Grzelcyk left in left at the deadline. We'll see what happens with Mason Lowry. Obviously, we still have to see if he made the opening night roster or not. But my anticipation is he's there. What we know is he's there. And again, if he's in Providence to start the year, which we both kind of think is the right move for his development, if that's the case, my guess is he plays a lot and he's going to be good and he's going to improve over the next 3 to 4 months. Obviously you have Forbert up here as well. But Grzelcyk's on an expiring deal. Obviously he's a local kid. I don't want to see him leave. But Lowry's right there. And, again, my what I think, prediction-wise, I'm predicting. This is not inside information. It's just predicting. Grzelcyk might be traded at the deadline for, a pick, a prospect. Get something for him. It's good to get something for those expiring deals that you might not re-sign. And Lowry's there to step in. Again, I like Grzelcyk a lot. I do. Great 5-on-5 defenseman. Fits like a glove with McAvoy. But again, you look at him being scratched in the playoffs last year and things like that, and Lowry waiting in the wings. So again, that wouldn't shock me. I agree with you though. I don't think they do anything seismic. I don't think first round picks are leaving here. I don't think top prospects. I don't even think Lysell is leaving here. I think they are going to hold on to what they have. And unless you have any other big predictions that don't pertain to the season, we can jump right in to what we think, where we think they'll finish, what they'll do, playoffs-wise. I have a cup prediction, by the way. I don't know if you do. Maybe you do.
I don't.
You don't. That's okay. You don't have to rush it now. But where do you have the Bruins finishing? What do you have their ultimate destiny? What are they?
Evan, thought about this for a while. I have them finishing second in the division. I think they're going second. I think you just look at the way this team is built. I think with all these teams over the years, that if there's the best way to build a team that at the very least can punch their ticket to the playoffs, all comes down to defense and goaltending, and you've got arguably the best two units of across the entire NHL. And I think you look at that foundation in place, look at the fact that it's not like you've got a barren forward core. You've got a 60-goal scorer. You got an almost 30-goal scorer. You got Marchand. You got enough high-end talent to elevate play. And if you can get added contributions from, guys like Poitras or Beecher or Lauko, these guys that should make the most of these added sample sizes or extended sample sizes they're going to get. And again, it's even coming down to like people look at someone like Van Riemsdyk or someone like that and view them as maybe being over the hill. It's all about what you're setting the expectations out for them. Like if you're asking James Van Riemsdyk, who is not maybe the player he was in Toronto, but if you asking him to get you 12, 13, 14 goals in the net front when like Nick Ritchie had 15 goals one year for you, is that asking a lot, right? Like I think that always what it comes down to every year when you're mapping out individual performances is what are you asking these guys to do? Like, are you asking DeBrus to be a 40-goal guy? No. Can he take another step forward? Are you asking Charlie McAvoy to hit 3 more gears? No, but how does he look after a full year recovered from that surgery, right? Like building at his age as well. Like Trent Frederick, you asking him to be a 25 goal guy, he'll take it. But as long as he builds off of last year, you've got guys that can make an impact up and down the lineup. So not to say that all of a sudden this team's on a path for 115 points or anything like that, but I think you look at just the way this team is built, it's equipped to, grind out those 2-1 games and be in the playoff picture there. And I think you look at also the rest of the Atlantic, especially, whether it's Tampa's issues at the goaltending position, their issues with depth, Florida, a lot of high-end talent. Again, we'll see what happens to get to the playoffs. I'm not talking about the playoffs just yet, but you look at like their defense, maybe some of their question marks in net, and go over a span of 82 games. Like the Bruins should be right in that mix, I think, and I have them down for second. I think they're winning at least one playoff round. That's my prediction.
I like it. I have been pretty open about where I think they'll finish. I still have them in third. Nothing's changed there, so I have them finishing third. Again, sort of to echo some of your points, because I think second and third are close enough that they're similar. They're not going to suck. I don't think they will. I think the defense is there. The goaltending's there. The question again comes down to, your scoring. How are your top two centers doing? Is Zacha progressing the way you want him to? With Pastrnak to his right, he should. Like, projection-wise, he should. Again, how is Coyle going to do? Well, he's going to be with Marchand and DeBrus to start the year, so that's a pretty good safety blanket. And again, even if things, if Poitras continues to grow, which we expect him to do, and he moves in, it's the same deal, right? Playing with Marchand, playing with DeBrus, it's the same thing. And then on, again, in the bottom six, you have a lot of guys there still. My guess is they find something that, they do something with Danton Heinen. How does Morgan Geekie sort of progress? Does Trent Frederick turn into a line driver? All of these things. But I still think the basis of your team, the defense, the goaltending end of it, I think is going to be sort of the bedrock of this team. And I think that's what, as we've said before, with this Atlantic division, you have a lot of teams that are high flying, Buffalo and Toronto, and you want to throw Tampa in that mix. So again, you have these high flying teams. I think that's where your defense and goaltending wins out. Now, in terms of the playoffs, part of me wanted to put Buffalo in that because number one spot is Toronto. I think Toronto wins this division. I think you agree on that. A lot of firepower up front, which again helps a lot in the regular season. I wanted to put Buffalo or even a team like Ottawa in that number 2 spot just to freshen things up. But I don't know. I feel like it's going to be Tampa. I just have a weird feeling. And I know Vasilevsky's out the first 2 months, might be more because it's freaking back surgery. And I just think in a playoff round against them, and again, you look at what happened last year with the Bruins and things going really poorly in the first round and that being a bad taste in their mouth. And this is a good group. It's a resilient bunch. I don't see them winning a playoff round. I don't. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I hope I have egg all over my face at the end of the season with this. The 1 year we don't predict him to win the cup, which we had last year, which should have happened. But I don't have them winning a playoff round. I don't. But they get in. And it's a good year of progression for guys like Poitras and Zacha. And, you want to throw Lowry in there, potentially Beecher as a fourth-line center. So I think things work out. I don't think this is a disappointment year. I don't think this is a year, what a shame. This is awful. I just think, you're sort of, you mentioned it. It's kind of a bridge year. I don't think they look at it like that, but let's face it, it kind of is. So I would love for them to sort of be like the Panthers of last year. And the way they're changing kind of have the makeup that might be the case. But on October 10th, I'm not ready to kind of say that yet. They're going to have the same fate. So
if they beat Chicago on October 11th, then we're running with it.
That's all I need. Just win the first game. Just win the first game
in the first game, and then we're ready to roll.
Poitras lays out Bedard in the center ice. Then I'm like, all right, this team's winning the cup this year. I take my prediction back. I do have a cup prediction, though. I say Hurricanes over Stars. I think the Hurricanes finally do it. I think it's been a bunch of years now that this team's in it. I think they do it. I think the Stars are very good. Again, it's unfortunate for them because it'll be, in that case, it would be 2 cups in like 4 or 5 years that they don't go on to win. But in terms of Toronto, I think Toronto kind of continues to ascend through the playoffs, but not quite get there. Goaltending's still kind of an issue. So, yeah, that's what I think. Do you have one off the top of your head that you want to make public or no?
No, I'm still pondering. I'll keep people waiting.
See, I find with these predictions, sometimes I'm just like with cups and the Stanley Cup. If you look too into it, you can look really deep into it, or you can just kind of go off your gut, and it really doesn't make a big difference with stuff like that. So I'm just, when I was sitting down to do these predictions, I was like, you know what? Hurricanes over Stars. Boom. So not huge. I don't have a huge analysis of why or why not, but that's what I feel. But again, would it shock me if the Bruins won a round or two in the playoffs? No, not at all. Not at all. But again, I have him third and not quite getting past the first round. But yeah, I mean, again, not a bad team. Not a bad team. I know we laid out the thing a lot throughout the offseason of, if this is a bad team, we'd be trading a lot of pieces at the deadline. I don't think you're going to come close to that. I think this team is too freaking good. Anyways, Connor, those are our big predictions. I don't think we gave any that were crazy. I don't think there were any like when I had DeBrusk leading the Bruins in goals a couple of years ago, which is notorious.
3.1 goals per game.
Yeah, so
whatever that awful stat I had was.
That was outstanding. It was like 3 goals a game or something. With the season starting, what can the people look forward to from you over at Boston.com and the Boston Globe?
Yeah, we're going to have you covered every single every game, practice throughout this upcoming season. Again, should be a fun year, I think. Based on the numbers we've seen from readership and engagement, a lot of people are very excited about these younger players stepping up as well. I think there's always that kind of shiny new toy thing that comes with these young prospects, especially when they could factor into really key roles for this team. So we're going to be covered throughout this season as these younger guys try to establish themselves as this next leadership group kind of steps into their new roles. So you can read all of our stuff over at Boston.com and the Globe. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can at ConorRyan_93.
Go do all that. You guys do a terrific job, and I'm very excited to see what you do and how this goes and everything that comes along with it. I think it's going to be a really, really fun year. 100 years. 100 years. We've been around for all 100 of those years. This is crazy for us. So we're
Cat's out of the bag.
Yeah, guys,
we're
100 years old. Anyways, as always, that's Conor Ryan. I'm Evan Marinofsky. You Bruins Beat listeners, have a great rest of your week.
The CLNS Media Network is powered by Fanduel. Sign up at FanDuel.com/Boston and get in on the action with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose.